Today is a big day for me because I'm at home, surrounded by walls full of memories. Jack is here too, looking so proud and happy. He's exploring the rooms with excitement, and I can't help but feel his energy rubbing off on me. We're in the main part of my family's house, the place where my dad's dreams came true. My dad worked really hard to make this place amazing, and now it's worth a whopping $100 million. It's like his legacy, something he left behind for me when he passed away. Now, without my dad by my side, my husband wants a piece of our family's legacy. He insists that what used to be mine alone should now belong to both of us. But I know better. I have proof. Papers with my name, Sarah, as the rightful owner. At 42, I work in the digital world, thanks to my job at an online bank. This career wasn't just a whim, it was shaped by the values my parents taught me about money management. They showed me how important it is to be responsible with finances, lessons I still carry with me today. Growing up with money, my parents taught me to respect it and not take it for granted. Despite our wealth, they made sure I didn't grow up spoiled. My allowance was just like everyone else's, and we didn't eat fancy meals all the time. I went to a regular public school, not some fancy private one. But somehow, rumors about us being super rich spread anyway. People thought my life was all about luxury and fun because of our big house and money. Sarah, with your huge house and all your money, life must be easy, right? You must have all the cool gadgets and games. Can we come over and play? People often asked me these questions, thinking I had everything. But the truth was, my life wasn't as extravagant as they thought. I didn't have the newest toys or gaming consoles, but people still assumed I did. Sometimes it felt like everyone just wanted to be my friend because of my family's money. Sarah, you're rich, right? Can you lend me some money? People asking for money always made me uneasy. It felt like they didn't understand the values my parents taught me. Then, I got into a tough spot when I accidentally broke Maria's gaming console. I didn't have any money at that moment, which made things even worse. Around the same time, Julie and I became classmates. She asked if I had told my parents about the accident, but I was too scared of disappointing them to say anything. I can't tell them. They might get mad. That's why I'm asking you, Sarah, she confessed. Saying no felt awful, especially since I didn't want things to be awkward at school. But my parents were clear about not lending money, so I had to apologize to Julie and explain that I couldn't help. After I couldn't help Julie, she ended up crying. And soon rumors started flying around. People accused me of not helping a friend in need, even though my family was well off. I tried to explain that I didn't have any money to spare, but it didn't seem to matter. Then, Maria said something that really hurt. She suggested that I cared more about money than friendship. Things got worse when Maria and Julie started spreading lies, saying I owed them money and refused to pay for the broken console. The school found out the truth eventually and scolded Maria and Julie. But instead of stopping, the rumors got worse and even reached my parents. My dad decided to deal with it and organized a meeting with their families. Even though they said sorry, I decided to stay away from Maria and Julie after that. I still had to deal with their looks and whispers, but at least there were no more direct confrontations. During dinner that night, my dad shared advice that stuck with me for years. He said it's important to stand by your decisions, especially when it comes to money. Sarah, it's okay to say no, he said with a smile. You don't have to tell anyone about your finances. If someone keeps asking, just say you'll have to check with your parents, even if you know you can't lend money. This lesson about handling money matters gracefully and firmly became really important to me. As I grew up, I became more careful about who I let into my life, focusing on friendships based on character, not money. After university, I made sure to keep my work and personal life separate, avoiding any financial complications. This whole experience taught me the importance of setting boundaries in both friendships and finances, and it's shaped who I am today. When I was 35, I met Jack through a friend, and despite him being a bit younger, his genuine personality quickly won me over. We started casually dating, and before long, it turned into something serious. 2 years later, we had a beautiful wedding, which made my parents really happy. After we'd been married for about a month, my dad suggested that Jack come over to our house. I trusted Jack, but I was worried that he might accidentally reveal some private family stuff because he loves to talk. Still, after a month of marriage, I felt ready to let him in on everything about my family. So, I invited him to visit my parents' house. Jack was amazed when he saw my family's house. His surprise was obvious, showing that he hadn't realized how well off my family was. Even though the visit went well, Jack couldn't stop asking about our money on the way home. I didn't know much about our finances myself, so his questions made me feel uneasy. A few months after we got married, my mom called to tell me that my dad was in the hospital. It was a shock, especially since I didn't know he was having health problems. Thinking back to our last visit, I remembered how he didn't seem well, and now I felt really worried and guilty. When I went to the hospital with my mom that Saturday, my dad tried to stay cheerful, but we could tell he was feeling down. He apologized for what he saw as a burden to us, showing his gentle nature. Then the doctors told us he had advanced pancreatic cancer, and it had spread too much for surgery. It was like a punch to the gut. We couldn't believe someone as health-conscious as my dad could get so sick. After the diagnosis, my dad stayed strong. He just wanted us to be happy, which made us all tear up. I wanted to spend every moment with him, but hospital rules meant only close family could visit. He wished for our friends to be around to make happy memories at home, which reminded us of the life he wanted for us. So I promised to keep our home full of joy, even after he was gone. Keeping that promise became really important to me. I decided to renovate our family home, something to focus on during such a tough time. Jack, always caring, worried about how much I was doing for my dad, not realizing the other stuff I was dealing with, like our family's estate issues that I hadn't told him about. When Jack asked about my dad's health, I finally opened up to him about everything we were going through. It was a relief to have the support while juggling work, hospital visits, and all the emotions. However, things got tense when Jack started asking about my dad's money and the family estate. He even suggested getting legal advice, just in case something happened to my mom too. It brought up painful memories for me. My dad had a lawyer he trusted, but Jack's insistence on being cautious with money started causing problems between us. A few months later, my dad passed away after bravely battling his illness. Then, the discussions about inheritance started within the family. I ended up getting a big house worth $5.5 million. But Jack's growing interest in the inheritance, despite me trying to keep him out of it, made things even harder. He was excited about moving into the mansion and kept asking about financial stuff, which caught me off guard. I later found out he'd been talking to my cousin at the funeral, who mentioned how the house would be a waste if it stayed empty. That just made things more complicated. Despite my attempts to explain to Jack that the inheritance wasn't something we shared, he didn't seem to listen. Our relationship started getting more hostile because of it. Even though he was there at my dad's funeral, Jack didn't help out with the memorial services or the legal stuff that followed. As things started to settle down and life went on, Jack dropped a bombshell. He said he changed the ownership of my family home to his name, and he had legal papers to prove it. I was shocked and hurt. Not only did he break my trust, but it also showed a huge lack of respect for our relationship and the boundaries we had. Dealing with inheritance issues brought up bigger problems in our marriage. We had to rethink what we valued, how much we trusted each other, and where our relationship was headed. When Jack told me he changed the ownership of our family home without telling me, I was shocked and hurt. He said he was tired of our marriage and suggested we live together as roommates in the house, with him not giving me much financial support. He even threatened divorce if I didn't agree, which was a lot to take in on top of everything else. I begged him to think about what he was doing and why he made such a big decision without talking to me. He said he'd talked to a lawyer about changing the ownership without my permission. Things got so bad that divorce seemed like the only way out. I was heartbroken and lost, feeling like I had to distance myself from the home and life I'd shared with Jack. I couldn't understand why he'd do something like this, and it felt like money had changed and for the worse. The next day, Jack demanded the house keys, saying the house was his now. This just made things worse. He tried to get into the house, but security stopped him. I showed them the real ownership papers, proving the house was mine because of my dad. Seeing the proof, Jack was shocked. He trusted a guy named Jerry to help him with legal stuff, and Jerry had lied to him. Jack had even given Jerry $360,000 to change the ownership, but it turned out to be a scam. Jack was really upset. He kept trying to call Jerry, but Jerry wouldn't answer. Jack was mad at him for tricking him and taking his money. Then he turned his anger on me, saying I spent too much money on things he thought were unnecessary. He even questioned if I understood how inheritance stuff worked. Even though Jack tried to fix things and suggested we give our marriage another chance, the trust between us was too broken. I asked the security guard to help him leave, closing a painful chapter of my life. In the months that followed, I had time to think about everything that happened. It made me realize how important trust and honesty are in a relationship. What happened with Jack, all the lies and betrayal, taught me to be careful not to let money cloud my judgment. During my dad's first memorial service at our family temple, Jack showed up unexpectedly. Since our divorce, things hadn't been going well for him. He didn't have a job, he had money problems, and it seemed like the people he trusted had let him down. He looked really sad and lost, standing there in contrast to the solemn occasion. As he tearfully tried to apologize, his actions unintentionally disrupted the memorial, causing a commotion among my relatives. Despite his emotional distress, I had to ask him to leave, and security had to step in to make sure it happened. It was a difficult moment, especially during such a solemn occasion, leaving me with mixed emotions, but also a strong desire to move forward and leave our past behind. I decided it was time to leave my parents' home, something I'd been planning for a while. I found a new place to live, cutting ties with Jack for good. Meanwhile, Jack kept coming to the family property, which we had turned into a rental villa. My mom and I ran the villa together, turning it into a happy place for many people to visit and enjoy. On his side, Jack seemed to be trying to make positive changes. He got a new job and was really focused on starting over. Turning our family home into a rental villa not only honored my dad's vision, but also created a welcoming place for guests from all walks of life. The villa, known for its stunning views and beautiful garden, became really popular. We hosted all sorts of events there, from small weddings to big family parties. Working on it with my mom brought us even closer and made us really happy. As the villa became more successful, we decided to add more stuff to make it even better. We put in a swimming pool, a cozy outdoor lounge, and a fun area for kids to play. We were really committed to making sure our guests had an amazing time, and it paid off. The villa became a top spot for people looking for a peaceful getaway and unforgettable experiences. This whole project wasn't just about making money. It was about making my dad's dream come true and creating special memories for our guests. Taking care of the villa's garden filled me with a deep sense of happiness. Seeing our family home turned into a place where people could come together, have fun, and make lasting memories made me really proud. I could almost imagine my father looking down with pride at what we had accomplished, bringing his dream to life. This venture not only fulfilled his vision but also gave us financial stability and a sense of freedom. Along the way, I learned important lessons about trust, money, and the strength needed to forge my own path, separate from the challenges of the past. In this journey of self-discovery, I discovered that facing difficulties can actually make you stronger and more determined. I heard news about Jack from friends, and it seemed like he was turning his life around, finding a meaningful job and learning from his mistakes. Seeing his progress gave me a sense of peace, knowing that both of us were moving forward and growing. My father's dream became a driving force for growth, not just for me and my mom, but for everyone who visited the rental villa. It became a place of joy and celebration, a sanctuary where people could create lasting memories. The success of the villa is a testament to my father's vision, reminding us of the values of resilience and hard work. Through this venture, we've created more than just a place to stay. It's a source of happiness, a place for making memories, and proof that dreaming big and putting in the effort can lead to incredible things. Thank you for taking care of my daughter for a year. When my sister-in-law came back from her trip overseas, she came straight to our house. She tried to take my almost 1-year-old daughter, thanking me for looking after her own daughter for a year. I got really worried and stopped her, telling her that the baby was actually mine, but she didn't seem to understand. I left her in the yard feeling uneasy. What I didn't know then were the scary things she was about to say, which really scared me. When she saw I wasn't joking, her face went pale. That's when everything started getting chaotic because of my sister-in-law. This all started about a year and a half ago when Megan, my 25-year-old sister-in-law, suddenly came back to her parents' home with a baby. She said, "My husband got moved overseas suddenly, but I'm scared of raising our little one in a foreign place. It's all so new to me. Oh, and I'm pregnant too. I hope our kids can be friends. If it's Kristen's baby, they'll be so cute together. It's weird to think of being friends with my sister-in-law," Megan said. Megan was friendly and talked to me easily, even though I was a bit older. It made me think we could be good friends. Even after I had my own baby, I lived in a separate house with my 30-year-old husband while Megan stayed with her parents. It's great that Megan's place is nearby. We can hang out whenever we want. I thought we'd all get along well with her and my husband's parents, I thought. But soon, I realized I was being too trusting. After moving back in with her parents, Megan started revealing her true self bit by bit. Sorry, Kristen. I have something urgent and can't take care of my baby. Can you watch her for me? Sure, but what's going on? My dad hurt his back. I need to get him some patches, Megan would explain. Feeling sympathetic, I happily took care of her baby. But this became a regular thing, with Megan always finding reasons to leave her child with me. That wasn't the only issue, though. Sorry, I need you to look after my baby again today, Kristen. Megan, are you lying to me? What? Why would you say that? Her reaction was over the top, making me sigh. Do you think I'm clueless? Your dad has never had back problems. Did I say that? I can't remember. She couldn't even keep track of her lies. And there was more. Hey, someone said they saw you out in town. Huh? Who snitched? No, it must have been someone who looked like me. Who are you going to believe? Some random person or your sister-in-law? Despite her attempt to convince me, her acting was terrible. Take care of your own child. I'm done helping you. What? Why? That's not fair. Megan threw a fit like a child but then stopped suddenly, as if she had an idea. Fine. I'll make you want to take care of my child yourself. What do you mean? Instead of answering, she smirked, grabbed the baby, and left our house. Feeling uneasy, I talked to my husband and in-laws about Megan's behavior, but it was like talking to a wall. She showed no remorse or understanding. And she had a plan. One afternoon, while I was napping on the couch with my pregnant belly, I heard a baby crying. Is it from a neighbor's house? It sounds too close, I thought. Then my phone rang. Hello, Kristen speaking. Hey, Kristen, please take care of my baby. What? Didn't I tell you I won't watch her anymore? Megan chuckled like my refusal was funny. It's too late. I already dropped my baby at your doorstep a while ago. I rushed to the door, alarmed. I found a baby crying on my doorstep, Megan. What were you thinking? I exclaimed. Well, you were being mean, so I had no choice, Megan replied, sounding gleeful as if she had just pulled off a prank. I told you, didn't I? I'd make you want to take care of my child. You wouldn't leave a baby on the doorstep, right? Stop joking. Where are you now? I demanded. Guess if I suppose it's hard for you to go out since you're pregnant, Megan laughed and abruptly hung up. When I tried calling her back, her phone was turned off. Despite my protests, when she finally returned in the evening, she ignored my words. This kept happening until I reluctantly started checking the doorstep and taking the baby whenever Megan called. Megan unapologetically said she was helping me practice for my upcoming childbirth, expecting me to be thankful. I'm not asking for thanks, but isn't there something to be said about attitude? I got more and more annoyed and stressed by her actions. This went on for 6 months until something happened a year ago. Going abroad for a bit. That's all Megan left before disappearing suddenly. No one knew where she went, but it wasn't surprising considering her habit of spontaneous trips funded by her part-time job earnings. My husband casually mentioned, it's nothing new. She probably went to see her husband since he was transferred overseas. We assumed she took her baby to meet its father. Our family, caught up in our own worries, hardly talked about Megan. Just before she disappeared, I went into labor 2 weeks early and was rushed to the hospital, caught off guard by the sudden birth of our beloved daughter. With all the commotion of an unexpected delivery and adjusting to being new parents, discussions about Megan faded. Before we knew it, a year had passed since she left. As my daughter's first birthday approached, our peaceful life was disrupted once again by Megan. I'm back, her familiar voice echoed through the unlocked front door. Megan, you're back from overseas? I asked, hardly believing it. Ignoring what I said, she went straight to my daughter. Thanks for looking after my daughter for a year, she said suddenly, then tried to take my child away. Hey, what are you doing with my child? I exclaimed, quickly taking her back. Megan looked confused. Come on, just because you've had her for a year doesn't mean you get to act like her mother. This child is really my daughter. Both of us were confused for a moment. Megan, didn't you take your own child with you overseas? What are you talking about? I left her in your yard, Megan said, cutting me off. It seemed like we were talking past each other, but I felt something awful might be happening. You mentioned leaving a child for a year when you went abroad. You left her in my yard, and that's what I've been saying. At that time, I had just given birth to this child and was in a hospital due to poor health. So I really don't know where your child is now. Shocked by the revelation, Megan's face went pale as she stuttered in disbelief. This is serious. We need to call the police, I said, reaching for my phone. But Megan grabbed my arm with trembling hands. Wait, please don't call the police. But how can we not? Please, I'll be in big trouble if you do, Megan said, looking really scared. I understood how serious the situation was, so I decided to tell our family about it. I called my husband and our in-laws to explain what was going on. But when I finished the call and turned around, Megan had disappeared. I was upset that she ran away when I wasn't looking. I felt really angry at Megan. After I called them, my husband and in-laws came to our house. My husband told us that there was indeed a baby in the yard while I was having our baby at the hospital. He didn't know much about Megan's baby and thought she took it away somewhere. He called the police to take care of the baby. We were so focused on our new baby that we completely forgot about that incident. Megan's child would have been around 1 or 2 years old when she finally returned. It's likely she confused my child with her own because they were close in age. After talking with the police, we found out Megan's baby was safe at an orphanage, which was a relief. I decided to let my husband and in-laws take care of Megan's child. But what worried me more was how scared Megan seemed. Her level of fear was unusual. There had to be more to this situation than met the eye. My gut feeling was right when I decided to take action. It looks like we need to teach her a lesson. I told my husband and in-laws. I had something on Megan that I never thought I'd use, but now was the time. It was time to show her. A week later, everything set up, I called Megan. After a few rings, she nervously picked up. Megan, your child is safe. You can come back home now, I assured her. Megan casually came over and rang the doorbell. I was so worried. I'm glad she's safe, Megan said with a careless laugh as she walked into our living room. But what she saw inside was unexpected. What in the world? Aaron and Ben. What are you guys doing here? Megan's husband, or should I say, her ex-husband, Aaron, was sitting on the sofa, looking angry at her. And on the floor sat her affair partner, Ben, with a sad expression like he was going to cry. This isn't good, Megan said, trying to leave our house. But my father-in-law, who's a big man, was blocking the doorway, stopping her from leaving. Megan ended up sitting on the floor next to Ben, getting a lecture from my husband, her ex-husband, and our in-laws. Come on, everything's fine now, right? The child is safe, Megan said stubbornly, puffing out her cheeks. But Aaron's cold stare silenced her. If you can't even look after the child properly, maybe you should give up custody and the child support payments, Aaron said, his tone icy. When I talked to Aaron, he told me that everything Megan had told us was a lie. He hadn't been sent overseas, and they had divorced because of her cheating. Despite that, Megan had managed to get custody of their child during the divorce and was getting a lot of money from Aaron for child support. Even if the parent with custody cheats, they still get child support. That's why Megan panicked when I wanted to call the police. She was scared of what would happen if they found out she wasn't actually taking care of their child. I explained to everyone. I felt really disappointed by Megan's selfishness. Kristen, you have to help me. I can't pay back the child support, Megan begged. But you're the one who left the baby with me. You can't deny that. Don't try to make excuses. Do you have any evidence? I asked calmly, while Megan screamed in panic. I showed her the video from my phone. After you kept leaving your baby at my doorstep, I installed a security camera for safety. It's important to keep the baby safe, I explained. Megan gasped, covering her mouth in shock. When did you record this? Ever since you began leaving your child at my doorstep. This video shows that you haven't been taking care of your responsibilities as a parent. Wouldn't it be better for the child to be with Aaron? I asked. Megan, biting her lip and growling softly, suddenly turned to Ben, who was sitting beside her, and burst into tears. Help me, Ben. Everyone's picking on me. But Ben, who appeared to have viewed Megan as just a casual relationship, gently pushed her away. I have another family, Megan. You've betrayed me too. Who do you think paid for our trip around the world with the child support money? Megan gasped, realizing her mistake. But is that really so wrong? She tried to argue. It's not exactly a good thing, I said firmly. Megan finally felt remorseful, sobbing and repeatedly apologizing, even falling to her knees on the floor. Please wait. I'm so sorry. Just forgive me, she begged. However, I couldn't let Megan off the hook easily. Remember, I won't forget how you've treated your child and me. You need to think hard about what you've done, I said firmly. Megan was taken away by the police, arrested, and her daughter was returned to Aaron, who got custody back. Now, Megan has to pay $500 in child support every month until the child is grown. Cut off by my husband and in-laws, Megan faces a tough road ahead. Even as she gets out of jail, Ben wasn't spared either. His wife filed for divorce and asked for compensation. As for me, I'm living a happy life with my husband and our daughter. Every day brings new joys and discoveries as we watch our daughter grow. I'm Ashley, enjoying the tranquil life alongside my husband, John. Yet there's a recurring issue. My brother's wife, Rachel. Together, they have a 3-year-old daughter named Ada, our cherished niece, adored by both John and me. While it's enjoyable to have Ada visit occasionally, Rachel seems to bring her over almost every week. Ashley, could you look after Ada this week? Rachel asks, as usual. Sure thing. Ada, behave yourself, okay? Okay. Ada eagerly bounds from the entryway to our living room, full of energy. Assuming John, who's lounging there, will take care of her, I steel myself to speak with Rachel. John and I adore Ada, but having her over every week is becoming a bit overwhelming. Even though we work from home, I'm an illustrator and John is a programmer. We're both freelancers. As freelancers, we have the flexibility to adjust our schedules based on our workload, but it's challenging to juggle childcare during busy periods. However, ensuring our niece's safety is our top priority, so I find myself multitasking, working on my tablet while keeping a watchful eye on her. I feel guilty for voicing my concerns to Rachel, my brother's wife, fearing it might strain their relationship, but the burden has become too heavy to bear. I'm truly sorry, but could today be the last day we watch Ada? I ask her gently. It's only later that I realize my mistake. She arches her eyebrows and sharply rebukes me. You wouldn't understand, Ashley, not having children of your own. Raising kids is incredibly tough. You can't possibly comprehend the challenges we face with Ada. Her words pierce my heart like daggers. It's because I'm infertile, I confess, feeling the weight of the admission. John and I have always dreamed of having children. We talked about it before we got married. But despite our efforts, we couldn't conceive. After seeking medical advice, we learned about my condition, which makes pregnancy extremely difficult. We're currently undergoing fertility treatments, which are physically taxing and financially draining. Each month, the hopeful anticipation of starting a family brings immense emotional stress for both John and me. Being blamed for not understanding the challenges of parenthood strikes a painful chord, especially amidst our struggles. But her accusations don't cease. Unlike you two who stay cooped up at home, I'm a sociable person. I have many friends who depend on me. Today, I brought Ada here because I'm heading to London to visit a friend. You two, who lead reclusive lives and don't contribute to society, should be grateful that I'm doing you a favor too. If you understand, take good care of Ada and stop complaining. After Rachel's heated departure, her scent lingering in the air, I re-enter the living room. John, evidently privy to the confrontation, wears an unusual frown. I didn't want Ada to witness all that, that's why I stayed back. But that was too much, he remarks, his tone edged with irritation. It's been roughly a month since little Ada began her weekly visits. Sensing it's time to address the situation, I resolve to call my brother Chris. Hey Chris. Hey Ashley. What's going on? It's been a while. Everything alright? I had been pondering Chris's decision to leave Ada with us. Despite his usual demeanor over the phone, my recent clash with Rachel left me on edge. So, with a hint of frustration, I broached the subject. Hey bro, Ada is adorable and all, but having her over every week is becoming quite the challenge. John and I have deadlines to meet as freelancers, you know? Some consideration would be appreciated. Ha! Ada? She's sleeping right now, he responded. Confusion set in as Chris claimed Ada was at home sleeping. When he sent a photo of Ada asleep, it didn't match the Ada we knew. I countered with a picture of Ada playing with John, to which he asked, "Who's that girl?" The last time I saw Ada with Chris, she was still a baby, unable to walk. The realization hit me that the child regularly left in our care, supposedly Ada, might not actually be her. But then, why would Rachel bring her over? Chris and I exchanged puzzled looks. Suddenly, John, who had been silently absorbing our conversation, tentatively addressed Chris. Chris, I apologize if I'm mistaken and I know this might be impolite, but have you noticed anything odd about Rachel lately? John and I had discussed it numerous times. Rachel's behavior had changed noticeably since her parents passed away from illness. Family gatherings ceased altogether. The last time I saw Rachel a few years ago, she was still attractive but dressed more modestly. Recently, however, she's been donning vibrant colors like red and blue and flaunting flashy accessories. Chris appeared to have picked up on these changes too, his response tinged with a hint of melancholy. Yeah, maybe, he admitted before abruptly ending the call with a promise to follow up later. While we sympathized with Chris's situation, John and I couldn't shake the suspicion that Rachel might be unfaithful. There was little we could do about her possible infidelity other than trust Chris to handle it. Our focus shifted to uncovering the identity of the cheerful girl playing before us. Eda, you're 3 years old, aren't you? Can you tell us your name? We had always assumed she was our niece, never bothering to confirm her name. But if she wasn't Ada, we needed to know. My heart racing, I questioned the girl, who responded with a beaming smile. I'm Ada Johnson. I'm 3 years old. After a brief exchange of glances with John, we praised little Ada, trying to maintain our composure. You said that perfectly, we chimed in, hoping to conceal our unease. We carried on as usual, not wanting Ada to sense our apprehension. The surname Johnson was unfamiliar to us, leaving us uncertain of the child's origin. Despite our confusion, it was evident that little Ada was innocent in all of this. Hoping to aid my brother in his investigation, I messaged him on WhatsApp, informing him that the girl with us was Ada Johnson. His reply was curt, "Understood, thanks." Later that afternoon, my brother showed up at our doorstep with another person in tow. Sorry to impose, but I need to discuss something with Rachel when she comes to collect Ada. Would you mind if we wait here? He inquired, and I readily consented, still harboring resentment toward Rachel for betraying my brother. As the evening slipped into night, Rachel stumbled into our home, clearly intoxicated. I'm back, Peter. I'm here to take you home, she slurred, oblivious to the impending tempest. As Rachel casually strolled back, seemingly on the verge of breaking, I greeted her with a forced smile. Hey, welcome back, Rachel. You seem a bit tipsy. How about I get you some water? That'd be great. Is this your way of making up for the nonsense you spouted earlier? As Rachel entered the living room, her usual cheerful demeanor contrasting with her slightly inebriated state, Ada was engrossed in play on the lap of a woman. Rachel glanced at the scene with confusion, noticing the woman's disapproving glare. Who's that? Did you hire a sitter? Nice to meet you. I'm Katie Johnson, Ada's mom. What? Rachel's surprise was so profound she couldn't even grasp the glass of water I offered, stumbling backward until she collided with a corner and tumbled to the floor. I watched her sprawled there, offering no assistance, when my brother's voice echoed from the entrance. I've brought him. Why is Chris here too? Rachel, still on the floor, exclaimed as my brother ushered in a man with flamboyantly colored hair. Rachel blanched at the sight of the man, and he paled upon seeing Katie. My brother directed Rachel and the unfamiliar man to sit beside each other. Though unbidden, they both attempted to straighten up, but their posture remained uneasy, their eyes darting about with evident unease. Because it wasn't suitable to subject a child to such a tense situation, John, who had been entertaining Ada in the adjacent room, whisked her away. With everyone assembled, my brother assumed command, fixing his gaze on Rachel and the man. I never thought my close friend would betray me with my wife. Isn't that right? No? No. An acquaintance from Chris's high school years still kept in touch and occasionally visited Chris's home. Chris had always felt uneasy about the way Noah looked at Rachel. I always figured if Rachel was going to stray, it'd be with you. But to find out it's actually you, and you have the nerve to leave your own kid with my sister and her husband. What the hell, man? Chris, once a notorious troublemaker in their small Nebraska town, had since settled into a corporate job, but his confrontational side resurfaced when he faced Noah. At Chris's chilling accusation, Noah let out a pitiful scream. Oh no, he replied in a trembling voice before continuing. It was Rachel who initiated everything. She sought me out at my salon, specifically asking for me. She confessed she had feelings for me. You can't just put this all on me. You were just as involved. You two morons. The first thing you need to do is apologize. Chris's words prompted Rachel and Noah to start apologizing, or so I assumed. However, it became clear that Noah, who could calmly leave his daughter with strangers, wasn't operating on a normal wavelength. Noah, pointing at the tearful Katie, raised his voice. It's all her fault. She barely pays attention to me, so I felt lonely and cheated. If anyone's to blame, it's Katie. Don't you dare deflect. Katie's sudden outburst startled Noah. When Chris brought her closer, she exuded quiet elegance. I never imagined my husband would entrust Ada to strangers while I'm at work. I'm deeply sorry. The usually humble Katie's fury was palpable. What do you mean you cheated because you felt lonely? Have you no self-control? And leaving Ada with strangers. Why would you do such a thing? Katie's frustration was evident. And it's because Rachel mentioned her sister-in-law and her husband are childless with nothing but time on their hands. So they're a convenient option, right? But we may not have kids, but we work from home. We're not babysitters. I told Rachel this morning. We're struggling. We never imagined you were using us to care for your mistress's child as if it were your own. But is that okay? Maybe I'll be blamed for cheating, but I've just shown a childless couple what it's like to have kids. What? The voice that escaped, resonating deep like Chris's, drew my attention to Rachel, who bore a striking resemblance to her partner. She uttered a pitiful, "Oh no," before erupting. This is none of your business, adults. We've been struggling to conceive. You were aware of that, weren't you? Your constant insensitive remarks have been infuriating. But I tolerated them because you're Chris's wife. Not anymore. Let me make it clear, you're incredibly rude. Bringing a stranger's child into our home without permission, and your garish makeup that doesn't suit your age, your overpowering perfume. When I finally voiced my long-held thoughts, Rachel flushed crimson, realizing she had no ground left to stand on. She bit her lip, remaining silent. Following that, Chris and Katie delivered a thorough scolding to Rachel and Noah. Predictably, both couples ended up divorcing, facing substantial financial burdens. Chris spread the news of Noah's affair with Rachel to his friends in Nebraska, and the gossip soon reached Noah's local hair salon. Noah, now the talk of the town, found himself unemployed after being fired. Rachel, previously a homemaker, struggled to secure employment, lacking work experience since she became a housewife straight out of college. Unsurprisingly, her job hunt proved arduous. Upon discovering her infidelity, Rachel's parents disowned her, leaving her to scrape by with sporadic odd jobs. Both Rachel and Noah lost not only their jobs but also their families due to their indiscretions, finding themselves in a pitiable state. To my surprise, fertility treatments proved successful for me. I'm pregnant, and guess what? We're expecting twins. John and I couldn't hold back tears of joy as we eagerly anticipate the arrival of our babies. We still maintain close ties with Ada and Katie, with whom we share a unique bond. Ada and Ernest Ada get along famously, often playing joyfully together. They even lovingly touch my belly, addressing the babies with, "Let's play together once you're born," which melts my heart. Despite my brother Chris and Katie being betrayed by their partners, they've committed to raising their children as single parents. John and I stand ready to assist in any way necessary. The four of us, John, Chris, Katie, and myself, have made a pact to collaborate in raising our niece Ada and the twins on the way, forging a resilient bond between us. You're telling me Direct charged you $35,000 for not beating you up in high school? Principal Morrison's voice echoed through the conference room as she stared at the invoice my stepbrother had actually printed on company letterhead. Derek sat there in his $1,000 suit, completely oblivious to the security guard who'd been quietly called in, while I watched the principal's laptop screen reflect something that made her face go pale. 47 separate incident reports she'd just pulled up, all with video evidence, all showing exactly who the real bully had been. Derek had arrived at my apartment that morning like he owned the place, which was ironic considering I'd bought it with the tech startup money he'd mocked me for pursuing. He pushed past me, surveyed my living room with that same sneer he perfected at 16, and pulled out an actual manila folder like some sort of collections agent. "Time to settle up, little brother," he'd announced, spreading papers across my coffee table. 4 years of protection services at Westfield High. I've itemized everything, keeping Brad Thornton from stuffing you in lockers, making sure the football team didn't use you as a tackling dummy, general intimidation prevention. Very reasonable rates, considering. I almost laughed until I saw he was serious. The invoice included daily rates, weekend surcharges, and even holiday premiums. At the bottom, in bold, total due, $35,000. Payment expected within 30 days. Protection services. I'd repeated. Derek, you were the one whoa. Who kept you safe? He'd interrupted, straightening his tie. Do you have any idea how many kids wanted to destroy you? The weird kid who spent lunch in a computer lab? Who wore the same hoodie every day? Who talked about coding like it was interesting? I saved you from social annihilation. The distorted history was so breathtaking I'd actually sat down. In Derek's version of our high school years, he'd been my guardian angel instead of my daily tormentor. He'd rewritten 4 years of systematic abuse into some twisted protection racket where he was the hero. I'm not paying you $35,000, I'd said. Then I'll have to pursue legal action, he'd replied smoothly. I have documentation. Witnesses. Kyle Brennan will testify he saw me intervene multiple times. So will Jake Martinez. Kyle and Jake, his accomplices who'd held my arms while Derek went through my backpack, who'd laughed when he poured chocolate milk on my keyboard, who'd filmed him flushing my calculus homework down the toilet. You know what? I'd stood up. Let's go to Westfield right now. Talk to Principal Morrison. She can verify your protection services. Derek had actually smiled. Perfect. Morrison always loved me. Star of the debate team, remember? Now, sitting in that conference room with its motivational posters and smell of industrial cleanser, Derek's smile was fading fast as Principal Morrison clicked through file after file on her laptop. Mr. Garrett, she said slowly, I'm looking at 47 separate incident reports involving you and your stepbrother Simon. Would you like to explain what I'm seeing? Incident reports. Derek shifted in his chair. Those were probably misunderstandings. Teenage roughhousing. Roughhousing. Morrison turned her laptop around. Is that what you call this? The first video was grainy but clear enough, cafeteria footage from September 2015. There was 15-year-old me sitting alone with my tray when Derek approached with his crew. The video had no sound, but you could see him grab my milk carton, shake it, then pour it over my head while his friends laughed. I just sat there, milk dripping down my face, not even bothering to wipe it off because what was the point? Derek started. That was a joke. Simon was in on it. Morrison clicked to the next video. And this joke. October 2015. The hallway camera showed Derek shoving me into a locker, not playfully, but hard enough that I bounced off and fell. When I tried to get up, he planted his foot on my backpack, pinning me down while he went through my pockets. I was checking if he had lunch money, Derek said weakly, to make sure he could eat. By taking it? Morrison's voice could have frozen fire. Here's November, December, January through March. Oh, this one's particularly interesting. She maximized a video from March 2016. The computer lab camera showed me working on a project, completely absorbed when Derek and his friends entered. They surrounded my station, and Derek yanked out the power cord. Even without sound, you could see me begging as the screen went dark. Hours of work lost. Then Derek grabbed my external hard drive and snapped it in half. Derek's voice cracked. He needed to learn to back up his work. By destroying his backup drive, Morrison pulled up another file. Do you know what was on that drive, Mr. Garrett? His entry for the state science fair, a program he'd been working on for 6 months. He had to withdraw from the competition. I remembered that night, going home and telling my mom I'd decided not to enter after all. The look of disappointment in her eyes. Starting over seemed pointless when Derek would just destroy it again. Let's continue, Morrison said. April 2016, he convinced the cafeteria staff he was stealing food and got his lunch account suspended. May 2016, he filed a false complaint saying he was selling test answers, triggering an academic investigation that took weeks to clear. June through August, surely you took the summer off. Those incidents where? September 2016, junior year, Morrison continued relentlessly. You spread rumors that Simon was stalking Sarah Chen, causing him to be removed from 3 shared classes. October, You accidentally spilled battery acid on his chemistry project. November. Stop. Derek's face had gone gray. Okay, stop. I'm just getting started, Morrison said. We haven't even reached the crown jewel, senior year, when you registered him for the talent show without his knowledge and announced to the entire school that he'd be performing interpretive dance. The security guard stepped closer, sensing the shift in energy. That was character building, Derek muttered. It was assault. Morrison's voice was steel. When he tried to leave the stage, you and your friends physically prevented him. For 11 minutes, while 600 students laughed and filmed, the only reason you weren't expelled was because Simon refused to file a formal complaint. She turned to me. Why didn't you? I looked at Derek, this man in his expensive suit who'd made 4 years of my life hell, and now wanted me to pay him for it. He was my stepbrother. My mom had just married his dad. I didn't want to break up the family. So you endured it. I survived it. Morrison pulled up one final file. Mr. Garrett, are you familiar with the state's anti-bullying legislation? Specifically, the provisions regarding systematic harassment with video evidence. Derek's lawyer brain finally kicked in. Those incidents were years ago. Statute of limitations. Extended to 7 years for cases involving minors with documented evidence. Morrison finished. We're at 6 years and 8 months. Well within the window for both criminal charges and civil liability. You can't be serious. Deadly serious. Morrison picked up her desk phone. In fact, I'm obligated to report this. 47 documented incidents of assault, theft, harassment, and destruction of property. The district takes these matters very seriously, especially when the perpetrator returns to campus making threats. Threats? I didn't threaten anyone. You presented a fraudulent bill demanding money for protection services that were actually systematic abuse. That's extortion, Mr. Garrett. The security guard moved behind Derek's chair. This is ridiculous, Derek sputtered. Simon, tell her this is a misunderstanding. I met his eyes. Is it? Because I have more evidence at home. Screenshots of the Facebook posts where you coordinated attacks. The Twitter account you created in my name posting embarrassing things. The deepfake photos you spread claiming I was. Okay. Derek stood up abruptly. Okay. I may have misremembered some details. Misremembered. Morrison's tone could have stripped paint. Sit down, Mr. Garrett. He sat. Here's what's going to happen, she continued. I'm filing a report with the district and the police. They'll determine whether to pursue criminal charges. You're also banned from this campus effective immediately. If you come within 500 feet of school property, you'll be arrested for trespassing. You can't. I can and I am. She turned to me. Simon, I am deeply sorry. We failed you. I failed you. These videos, I had no idea it was this severe. I got good at hiding it, I said quietly. And Derek got good at doing it where teachers wouldn't see. Except he didn't know about all the cameras. Morrison nodded. The security system upgrade in 2015. Full coverage, cloud storage, 7-year retention. Your stepbrother's abuse is thoroughly documented. Derek's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and went even paler. My firm, someone sent them. Oh, that would be me, Morrison said pleasantly. I copied your law firm on the email to the district. 47 video files make quite an attachment. I'm sure they'll be very interested in their associate's extortion attempt. I'll be disbarred, Derek whispered. Probably, Morrison agreed. Fraud, extortion, falsifying evidence. Not a great look for an attorney. The door opened and 2 police officers entered. Derek looked at me desperately. Simon, please. We're brothers. Stepbrothers, I corrected. And you made sure I never forgot the step part. Remember when you introduced me as the charity case my dad made us take in? Remember when you told everyone my mom was a gold digger who tracked your father? I was a kid. You were 18 when you submitted a fake recommendation letter to MIT under my name, telling them I was withdrawing my application. If Mrs. Chin hadn't called to verify, I would have lost my spot. Morrison pulled up another file. Oh, I have that one too. Forgery, fraud, interstate commerce, that's federal. The officers stepped forward. Derek Garrett, we need you to come with us for questioning regarding multiple allegations of assault, harassment, and extortion. As they cuffed him, Derek kept staring at me. 35,000. That's all I needed. I have debts. Gambling. So you decided to invent a debt I owed you? For terrorizing me? I protected you. Even now, even caught, he clung to his delusion. Without me, those kids would have destroyed you. You were those kids, Derek. You were the monster you claimed to be protecting me from. As they let him out, Morrison sighed heavily. Simon, I need to ask, why now? Why let him come here, make these claims? I pulled out my phone, showing her my recording app. Same reason I never fought back in school. Sometimes the best defense is letting bullies hang themselves with their own rope. He came to my home, made threats, demanded money. I needed him to repeat it on the record, with witnesses. You knew about the security footage. I work in tech security now. First thing I did when I got successful was request my complete school records. The district sent everything, including video files I don't think they meant to include. I've had them for 2 years, waiting. Waiting for what? For Derek to need money badly enough to try something stupid. His gambling debts, his lifestyle exceeding his income. I kept tabs. When he showed up this morning, I knew it was time. Morrison studied me with new respect. You orchestrated this. I survived high school by being smarter than him, not stronger. Nothing's changed. We sat in silence for a moment. Through the window, I could see Derek being placed in the police car, his expensive suit rumpled, his carefully styled hair messed up, looking more like the bully he'd been than the lawyer he pretended to become. The district will want to offer you a settlement, Morrison said finally, to avoid litigation over our failure to protect you. I don't want money, I want a program. Bullying prevention that actually works. Cameras are good, but someone needs to be watching them. Someone needs to see the patterns before 47 incidents become a statistic. That's incredibly generous, considering. Derek thought I owed him for not beating me up. The school thinks they owe me for letting him. Everyone's focused on debt and payment. I stood up. I just want kids to eat lunch without fear, to code in peace, to carry their backpacks without checking over their shoulders. That's not about money. Morrison stood too, extending her hand. You've become quite a man, Simon, despite us. Despite him. Because of him in a way, I admitted. Every punch taught me resilience. Every destroyed project taught me to back up files. Every humiliation taught me that dignity comes from inside, not from others' opinions. That's a very mature perspective. It's a survivor's perspective. I shook her hand. But I'd rather kids not need to develop it. As I left Westfield High for what I hoped would be the last time, my phone buzzed. A text from my mom. Derek's father just called. What happened? I thought about how to answer. How to explain that her stepson, the boy she tried so hard to make me bond with, had just been arrested for crimes committed under her roof. How to tell her that our brotherly roughhousing had been documented assault. In the end, I simply wrote, Derek tried to charge me for something he never did. The truth caught up. I'll explain tonight. Her response came quickly. I'm sorry, for not seeing, for not protecting you. I protected myself, I wrote back. That's what you taught me. It was true. My mother had raised me to be smart, resourceful, independent. When her new husband came with a son who hated me on sight, she'd done her best to make peace. She couldn't see what happened at school, couldn't hear the threats whispered in hallways, couldn't feel the daily fear that walked beside me. But she'd given me something better than protection. She'd given me the tools to survive. The news spread quickly. By evening, Derek's law firm had issued a statement about his immediate termination pending investigation. His social media accounts went dark. Kyle and Jake, those loyal accomplices, suddenly developed amnesia about their high school years when reporters called. I got messages from classmates I hadn't heard from in years, some apologizing for not helping, some claiming they never knew, some admitting they'd laughed along because it seemed safer than becoming the next target. I responded to none of them. That chapter was closed now, sealed with police evidence tape and federal investigation notices. A week later, a package arrived at my door. No return address, but I recognized Derek's handwriting. Inside was a single sheet of paper and a flash drive. The paper said simply, "You won. Here's everything." D. The flash drive contained folders of photos, videos, messages, Derek's complete archive of my humiliation. 4 years of carefully documented abuse he kept as trophies. The evidence that would have convicted him even without the school's footage. I thought about destroying it, about finally erasing those years. Instead, I made copies and sent them to Morrison, to the prosecutors, to the lawyers handling the criminal case. Derek thought he'd been building a blackmail library. Instead, he'd been creating evidence of his own crimes. Every photo timestamped, every video tagged with participants, every message traceable. He documented his own downfall as carefully as he orchestrated my misery. The final video was from graduation day. Derek giving his valedictorian speech while I sat in a crowd, invisible in my cap and gown. He'd spoken about overcoming challenges, about the bonds of brotherhood, about protecting those weaker than ourselves. His camera, had zoomed in on my face during those words. I wasn't crying, wasn't angry. I was simply enduring, waiting for it to be over, already planning my escape to MIT, to a life he couldn't touch. Looking at my younger self, I wanted to tell him it would be worth it. That the kid who spent lunch in the computer lab would build something Derek could never destroy. That survival was its own victory, but he already knew that. You could see it in his eyes, focused not on the speaker but on the exit, on the future, on a life waiting beyond high school halls and stepbrothers who confused cruelty with strength. Derek had demanded $35,000 for protection he never provided. What I'd actually bought with 4 years of endurance was priceless. The knowledge that I could survive anything, build anything, become anything. Even him coming back couldn't take that away. Especially not for $35,000.
A huge renovation for elder care? $30,000? What's going on? Wait, isn't that my wife's parents' house? Then, I get this strange call from someone claiming to be my estranged sister-in-law's husband. Something doesn't add up here. It seems like my sister-in-law might be plotting something. Hi, I'm Martha, a 56-year-old stay-at-home wife. My kids are grown and out of the house now, so it's just me, my husband, and my in-laws living together. Thankfully, I have a good relationship with them, which is nice since I lost my own parents when I was young. With the kids gone, my husband and I are finally enjoying some freedom from parenting duties. When my husband and I tied the knot, we knew we'd eventually share a home with his parents. However, my mother-in-law, who had a rough time with her own mother-in-law, had her house turned into a 2-family home for us. Even though we live under the same roof, we each have our own space, which has probably helped our relationship flourish. While my husband is at work during the day, I'd often hang out with my in-laws. One day, while my father-in-law was busy with farm chores, I was fixing lunch in the kitchen, planning for us to enjoy it outside. Suddenly, a call came from one of my father-in-law's farming buddies, informing us that he had fallen and broken a bone. He had already been rushed to the family doctor in a pickup truck. My mother-in-law and I abandoned the food and hurried to the hospital. When we got there, emergency surgery was in progress. Despite seeming healthy, my father-in-law was in his 80s, so bouncing back from a fracture wouldn't be easy. The doctors warned us to brace for the worst, possibly even needing a wheelchair. So that's what they meant. As long as he pulls through, that's all that matters. I'll be there to support him, I vowed. We sat anxiously, hearts heavy with prayers, as the surgery dragged on. By the time my husband finished work and joined us, the surgery was over, and we breathed a collective sigh of relief seeing my father-in-law peacefully sleeping in his hospital room, free of any major complications. We decided to rally around him together from then on. But our hopes were dashed when, just a month later, my father-in-law passed away suddenly. His age had left him vulnerable, and he succumbed to an infection that took hold after the surgery. With many of his friends and family also elderly, we hesitated to burden them with news of the wake and funeral. After much discussion, we settled on a private family funeral. Yet even in death, there were unresolved tensions. What about my sister-in-law? I raised the question to my mother-in-law and husband, both wearing expressions of disapproval, likely remembering her troubled marriage, which they had vehemently opposed. While my husband didn't share their strong opposition, he couldn't fully embrace the idea either. This created a strain, causing their relationship with their daughter to become distant. Still, she was their flesh and blood. Shouldn't she have the chance to bid her final farewell? Eventually, they relented, agreeing that if we could reach her, she could attend. But our attempts to contact her proved futile, and the funeral proceeded without her presence. It's just the way things are with her. It's fate. Don't dwell on it, Martha. My mother-in-law comforted me, gently patting my shoulder as we made our way home from the crematorium with my father-in-law's ashes. His sudden passing left us all reeling, without any mental preparation for the funeral and cremation process. As we clasped his ashes and lit incense, the days that followed were filled with a sense of emptiness. It's easier when my husband is here. We can lean on each other. But when he's at work, the silence becomes unbearable. So I find solace in my mother-in-law's company. I know she's enduring even greater pain and sorrow than I am. After all, she lost the husband she'd been with for so many years in the blink of an eye. Even if it's just a facade. I make an effort to maintain a cheerful demeanor around her, I admitted. But my mother-in-law surprised me with her pragmatism. I had planned to keep things this way until the 49th day. However, yes, we can go through his belongings later. But I'm already over 80. You look remarkably young for your age, mother-in-law. Rarely ill, she'd often mention her only hospitalization being childbirth, indicating her robust health. Essentially, she assured us not to worry about her. You're very kind, Martha. But while I'm still mobile, I'd like to organize our things, including his, she insisted. I understand the sentiment of wanting to preserve important memories, like your father-in-law's belongings. Just let me know if you need assistance, I offered. She promptly asked for help retrieving items out of her reach. As we sifted through old photos of my father-in-law, she fondly recalled their youth, sharing tales of their adventures. I listened attentively, nodding along. When the phone rang, my mother-in-law, who didn't own a smartphone, relied on the landline for communication. I wonder who that could be. Only a few close friends knew our situation, and I thought they might avoid calling once they knew. But it might be urgent. I'll answer it. Considering her difficulty in moving, I decided to answer the phone myself rather than inconvenience her. I quickly reached for the receiver near the entrance, greeted by a polite voice I didn't recognize, introducing himself as my sister-in-law's husband. However, I had never crossed paths with him before, leaving me uncertain if he truly was who he claimed to be. As I listened, pondering if this was a new scam targeting the elderly, he broached the topic. I want to discuss the home renovation for caregiving. My father-in-law had already passed away, so why mention caregiving renovations now? Could he have mistaken my mother-in-law's situation? But she wasn't in need of such extensive care. Excuse me? Are you certain you've dialed the right number? This is my wife's family home, isn't it? The man, supposedly my sister-in-law's husband, referenced her maiden name, which indeed matched my husband's family. There was no mistaking this as their residence. Furthermore, his mention of my sister-in-law's name confirmed his authenticity. Yes, the person you mentioned is indeed my husband's sister. Thank you for your understanding. Given the difficulties our family has faced due to our troubled marriage, I feared I had made a negative impression once again. Although I wasn't privy to why my in-laws vehemently opposed my sister-in-law's marriage, this man didn't give off any negative vibes. On the contrary, he appeared genuinely humble and sincere. According to him, he had heard about the estimated $30,000 needed for caregiving renovations and was determined to make amends for the trouble he had caused. He assured us he intended to fulfill the payment, but needed an extension due to difficulty in gathering the funds by the deadline. It's awkward to have him explain everything before divulging this, but his earnestness made me falter. Thank you for your courtesy. Regarding the extension, please give me a moment. When did you learn about the caregiving renovation? My father-in-law was in good health and actively engaged in agriculture until recently. So there was no need for caregiving renovations at all. Past tense. Yes, my father-in-law passed away. We just concluded his funeral and cremation. I understand. I could almost sense his panic on the other end of the line. He must have been bewildered by the disparity between what his wife had relayed and the truth I presented. It simply didn't add up for him. Gradually, he confessed to having caused considerable distress to my in-laws. When he married into the family, he believed his wife's assertion that her father required care, and he aimed to offer financial aid as a gesture of apology for the inconvenience he had caused. He recounted this to me, seemingly sincere in his intentions. I probed how the notion of my father-in-law needing care had arisen. It emerged a few years back. Initially, he appeared to send a fixed sum each month to contribute to caregiving expenses. However, it became apparent that neither my father-in-law nor mother-in-law were aware of such arrangements. Had they known, my mother-in-law would have surely invited him to the funeral. He claimed her mother had expressed gratitude and that it had been helpful, leading me to believe I was gradually being forgiven. If you were truly forgiven, wouldn't she communicate with you? That's a valid point. Moreover, the amount of money sent annually seemed to be increasing. He had been sending more each month, assuming we had requested additional support, a request we had no memory of making. So none of this money reached you? As I confirmed, I sensed his growing frustration. It was challenging for me to articulate while also absorbing the information. I speculated that perhaps my sister-in-law. Well, I couldn't outright say you're being deceived. But he interjected, you don't need to tiptoe around it. I'm being deceived, aren't I? Unable to confirm or deny, I remained silent. He likely interpreted my silence as confirmation. Seeking guidance on how to proceed if indeed being deceived, he turned to me. While it wasn't my place to advise, I couldn't bear to abandon my sister-in-law, my husband's sibling. Despite our estrangement, I assured him we would discuss the matter and get back to him later. And with that, our conversation concluded for the day. Upon returning to my mother-in-law, she remarked, "That was quite the lengthy call. Was it one of those persistent salespeople? You know, you should just hang up on them." She assumed it was a pushy sales call. No, it was someone claiming to be my sister-in-law's husband. I replied, sharing the details of the conversation with her. Anger simmered beneath her calm facade as she listened, erupting further upon hearing the entirety of it. What kind of person is she, using her father as an excuse to extort money from her husband? My mother-in-law's hands trembled with fury. It wasn't the first time my sister-in-law had displayed financial irresponsibility, often splurging on luxury items she couldn't afford with her allowance or part-time job earnings. Her behavior seemed suspicious. When she decided to marry, her partner was a man of considerable wealth, which led her parents to vehemently oppose the union. Their opposition wasn't for the sake of my sister-in-law, but rather for her partner's well-being. We then agreed to wait at the culprit's residence with her husband for her eventual return. It had been so long since I last laid eyes on my sister-in-law. When she first introduced her then boyfriend, now husband, to her parents and brother with marriage intentions, there was quite a stir. However, as I wasn't yet formally part of the family, I wasn't present for the commotion. Hence, this would mark my initial encounter with my sister-in-law's spouse. As I had sensed during our phone conversation, he appeared genuinely sincere with a pleasant demeanor. Despite rumors of his substantial income, he didn't seem to lead an extravagant lifestyle. Instead, he appeared to opt for a more modest existence. However, if one of the reasons behind this modesty stemmed from my sister-in-law's deceit, it undoubtedly evoked a complex mix of emotions. Meeting my sister-in-law again after many years, her unexpected encounter with her mother at home left her visibly stunned, her eyes widening in disbelief as she stood frozen in place. The image I had of my sister-in-law was one of someone with a penchant for flashy things. However, the woman before me now appeared excessively ostentatious, lacking any sense of refinement, which was somewhat disheartening to witness. The three of us had agreed beforehand to play along with my sister-in-law's charade. Initially, we opted not to address her deceit directly. It's been quite some time. "I'm glad to see you're doing well," I greeted her with warmth. Caught off guard by the unexpected kindness, my sister-in-law stuttered in response to her mother, perhaps fearing her lies had been exposed, and she would face reprimand. "I've been wanting to see you again after all these years. How have you been?" we chose not to divulge the truth about her father's passing and upheld the pretense that he was still alive. I offered my apologies for not keeping in touch and exchanged pleasantries accordingly. Humbly, my sister-in-law expressed relief that her mother seemed healthy and admitted to worrying about her. However, conspicuously absent from her remarks was any mention of her father. We were keen to avoid any discussion that might inadvertently reveal the truth about her father's condition or the issue of caregiving expenses. It appeared that my husband and she had crossed paths before, yet her deception remained undetected. Perhaps she believed she could continue her charade without consequence. "Your mom seems pleased. It looks like you two are doing well together," remarked my mother-in-law. She was hopeful that her daughter would mend her ways and gradually start supporting her husband. The strategy was to shower her with praise in the hopes of prompting a change of heart. Somehow, my sister-in-law went a step too far, assuring my mother-in-law that she would provide caregiving support if needed and even insisted not to worry about finances. It's astonishing she could make such promises in front of her husband, who had been supporting her with good intentions. My heart went out to him as he listened to it all, I lamented. Expressing our gratitude, we took our leave that day. Judging from her actions, it seemed probable that my sister-in-law had been diverting the money she requested for her own use. Uncertain of where the hefty sum of $30,000 had disappeared to, we opted to hire a private investigator to delve into her financial affairs. The monthly caregiving funds, totaling several $1,000s, were evidently being redirected for her personal benefit. However, what unfolded was a shocking revelation. She was deeply entangled with a favored club host, lavishing him with financial support in a bid to elevate his status. Her extravagant spending included purchasing costly bottles and accumulating debts she couldn't settle each month. As the host faced mounting pressure to settle his unpaid bills, amounting to $30,000, my sister-in-law's husband was incensed, realizing he could no longer turn a blind eye. He meticulously orchestrated his plans while she was away on a trip with her preferred host, oblivious to the unfolding events. Upon returning home a few days later, she was met with a stark reality. Her house was devoid of furniture or personal belongings, leaving her in a state of panic. Frantically attempting to reach her husband to no avail, she eventually contacted me in distress. Initially hysterical, she immediately quieted down when I nonchalantly inquired about her trip with the club host. Unable to question how I was aware of her actions without admitting guilt, she found herself at a loss for words. Now it was my turn to confront her, leaving no room for rebuttal. "Your deception hasn't gone unnoticed. You've betrayed not only your mother and husband, but also shattered any trust others may have had in you. Furthermore, the father-in-law you exploited as an excuse has passed away. It wasn't entirely her fault for being unaware of her father's passing, but using his supposed care as a pretext to solicit money was unquestionably wrong. I made it clear that her ex-husband was also privy to the truth, and upon realizing she had been abandoned, she erupted into a fit of screams over the phone, resembling a person unhinged. Refusing to engage with her ex-husband and unwilling to burden my elderly mother-in-law further, I volunteered to act as an intermediary with my sister-in-law. Despite her continued protests over the phone, she evoked pity in a way, oblivious to her father's demise and exploiting him as a means to an end. Though she might harbor regrets, it was too late for remorse. I delivered one final message to her. Your ex-husband intends to demand full repayment for the money you squandered on the host. You'll need to find a way to settle the $30,000 debt on your own. Subsequently, she received legal documents from a lawyer. Despite her request to speak with her husband, he remained resolute, unable to stomach any interaction with his ex-wife, even for legal proceedings. With no room for negotiation, my sister-in-law was left to eke out a modest living while grappling with the weight of her debts. Naturally timid, she lived in perpetual fear of the lawyer's notices and the unwelcome visits from debt collectors. As for us, we resumed our ordinary lives. While it took some time to sift through my father-in-law's belongings, we resolved to move forward as a family, including his share. Recently, my mother-in-law has begun showing signs of decline, hinting that the day she'll require care may be nearing. Since we couldn't do much for my father-in-law, my husband, and I pledged to do our utmost for my mother-in-law.
Here's a gift for your wedding. Enjoy it with our son, said Mary, my mother-in-law, as she handed me a teddy bear. It was cute, but I couldn't fully appreciate it. Mary and I hadn't been getting along, so her sudden kindness was confusing. I met Tom at our gym when he kindly helped me with a tricky machine. We hit it off and soon started dating. A year later, on my birthday, he proposed. Married life with Tom has been great, but I've had some worries, especially about my relationship with his mom, Mary. When we visited his family's mansion, I was surprised by their wealth. Tom, however, is down to earth and not into extravagant spending, which I admire. My dad always stresses the importance of financial independence, so Tom's frugal mindset resonated with me. But when I finally met my in-laws, Mary seemed to dislike me from the start. She made a hurtful comment about my work as a remote worker, implying I just play on the computer all day. It stung, despite my efforts to work hard and be responsible. Childhood friend love stories sound nice, but maybe they're not so common in reality. Since Mary's mood didn't improve, we decided it was best to leave. On our way home, Tom kept apologizing to me. I'm really sorry about my mom. She's been upset about Emily and took it out on you. I'll talk to my dad about it later. Mary's behavior made me question if marrying Tom was the right choice. But I still loved him and wasn't ready to give up easily. I made a secret vow to prove Mary wrong. After our wedding, John suggested we move into a guest house on their property. It's been empty for years, he explained. As you get older, it's easy to lose touch with friends. We'd love to have you nearby. Feeling uneasy, I called my mom and showed her the teddy bear. She immediately told me to get rid of it. Shocked by my mom's reaction, I hurried to the police station. My name is Sarah, I'm 28, and I work from home. I've been happily married to Tom for a year, though we don't have kids yet. I met Tom at our gym when he kindly helped me with a tricky machine. We hit it off and soon started dating. A year later, on my birthday, he proposed. Married life with Tom has been great, but I've had some worries, especially about my relationship with his mom, Mary. When we visited his family's mansion, I was surprised by their wealth. Tom, however, is down to earth and not into extravagant spending, which I admire. My dad always stresses the importance of financial independence, so Tom's frugal mindset resonated with me. But when I finally met my in-laws, Mary seemed to dislike me from the start. She made a hurtful comment about my work as a remote worker, implying I just play on the computer all day. It stung despite my efforts to work hard and be responsible. Childhood friend love stories sound nice, but maybe they're not so common in reality. Since Mary's mood didn't improve, we decided it was best to leave. On our way home, Tom kept apologizing to me. I'm really sorry about my mom. She's been upset about Emily and took it out on you. I'll talk to my dad about it later. Mary's behavior made me question if marrying Tom was the right choice. But I still loved him and wasn't ready to give up easily. I made a secret vow to prove Mary wrong. After our wedding, John suggested we move into a guest house on their property. It's been empty for years, he explained. As you get older, it's easy to lose touch with friends. We'd love to have you nearby. The guest house was spotless and roomy, much cozier than your average home, even though it had been vacant for years. After talking it over with Tom, I accepted his dad's kind offer, but this decision brought its own set of problems. Mary, who lived nearby, started dropping by uninvited and picking at everything. She'd nitpick about the cleanliness of the house or criticize my cooking. She even belittled my remote work, saying it wasn't real work and comparing me unfavorably to Emily, Tom's ex, who apparently excelled at everything domestic. These comments always seemed to come when Tom wasn't around. At first, I tried to defend myself, but Mary was expert at twisting my words, leaving me frustrated. Eventually, I realized engaging with her only stressed me out more. So I started brushing off her remarks and letting them slide. This seemed to annoy her even more, so she began resorting to more direct forms of harassment, like hiding community newsletters from me and withholding messages from neighbors. Her actions caused me to miss important community events, which landed me in trouble. One day, as I was folding laundry, she purposely messed it up or handled it with dirty hands, leaving stains. She'd help herself to food from my fridge without asking and even opened packages I'd ordered online, criticizing me for being wasteful. When her actions started causing actual damage, I reached my breaking point. I couldn't ignore it any longer. I decided to confront Mary directly. Enough is enough, Mary. Even if you have issues because of Emily, this is going too far. Why do you keep harassing me like this? I stood firm, arms crossed, ready to confront her. Mary seemed surprised by my determination and quickly fired back. I faced challenges as a new bride too, but I never complained to my in-laws like you do. You're quite headstrong. Once you marry into a family, shouldn't you serve and respect your husband's parents? That's how it used to be. You think it's all right to treat me this way just because you went through it as a bride? I asked, stunned. Mary's response was chillingly firm. Yes, I do, and I won't stop. I can't accept someone like you as Tom's wife. If you don't like it, just divorce him and leave. Mary's words left me speechless with disbelief. It was clear that reasoning with her was futile. I didn't want to burden Tom, but it seemed I had no other option. When I finally opened up to him about his mother's behavior, he was distressed. What is my mother thinking? I've told her countless times not to bother you, and now she's dragging the neighbors into it. Bad-mouthing is one thing, but it's unacceptable when she starts interfering with our daily lives. I'm sorry you have to deal with this. I'll have a serious talk with her. That night, Tom confronted Mary at our home. Despite her tearful protests, he stood his ground. Enough is enough. If this happens again, I won't forgive you. Thankfully, Mary stopped coming over for a while, giving us some much-needed peace. But it didn't last long. A week later, just when I thought things were settling down, the doorbell rang, and there stood Mary, wearing a wide smile. She was holding a cute teddy bear for some reason, and I couldn't quite figure out why. I thought, puzzled by the situation. Mary, what brings you here today? I asked. She seemed meek and apologetic as she responded, I'm sorry for everything. Tom scolding me made me realize how childish I was being, taking out my frustrations about Emily on you. I accepted her apology, albeit with confusion. Well, I'm glad you understand. Actually, I came to apologize properly. I realized I never gave you a proper wedding gift, so I thought this teddy bear would be nice. Isn't it cute? I wish you and Tom happiness, she said, offering me the bear. Though I thanked her, the gift didn't make much sense to me. I'm not particularly fond of teddy bears or stuffed animals in general. For a wedding gift, something practical like kitchenware or appliances would have been more appropriate, especially considering our recent conflicts. Could there be a hidden motive behind this gesture? Feeling uneasy, I decided to consult my mom, who lived nearby. I've confided in her about Mary's harassment before. When I showed her the teddy bear, her usually calm face lit up suddenly. Sarah, your dad brought some sweets as a souvenir. Let's put the teddy bear in the living room and have some coffee first. Help me get things ready, my mom said, her behavior seeming strange. Despite my unease, I went to the kitchen. As soon as I entered, my mom grabbed my shoulder with a serious expression. You need to get rid of that thing quickly. Otherwise, something terrible will happen. What? Why the sudden urgency? Is there something wrong with the teddy bear? I asked, confused. Calm down and listen. That stuffed animal is. After hearing her explanation, I was speechless at Mary's outrageous behavior. But at the same time, I ran out of patience. I understand now. Then I need to return the gesture, I said, placing the teddy bear in the living room and waiting for Tom to come home. When he saw it, he asked, Isn't it cute? Did you buy this? Welcome home. No, this is a wedding gift from your mother, I replied. From Mom? Why would she give a teddy bear? Tom asked, puzzled. I pulled him aside to explain the situation and asked for his help with my plan. He nodded in agreement. A few hours later, Tom and I found ourselves in a heated argument. You preferred Emily because she was nicer, just like your mom said. That's why you wanted to marry her, I accused him. I never said that. You're reading too much into it. Tom retorted, the argument escalating into harsh words. That's it. Marrying someone like you was a mistake. Let's get divorced right now, he declared. And just as he said that, Mary burst into our house. She stood at the doorway with a broad smile plastered on her face. Tom, you finally see the truth. She's the worst wife, strong-willed, not cute at all, and so presumptuous. I always knew she wasn't right for you. Divorce her immediately and kick her out of this house. Mary's delight quickly turned to confusion. Tom and I, who moments ago were supposedly locked in a fierce argument, now shared a cold gaze as we stared back at her. I addressed her slowly. You noticed we were fighting, didn't you? Mary stumbled in her response, attempting to cover up her timing to enter our home. It was just a hunch. I just felt it, she quickly defended, but her shifting eyes betrayed her. Don't lie. Tell the truth. You rigged a teddy bear with a surveillance camera and a bug, didn't you? I accused, revealing what my mom had noticed and told me about when I returned home. She had suspected something when she heard about Mary's gift, recalling a similar crime reported on the news involving a woman being spied on through a stuffed animal. Mary's expression froze in realization. On my way back, I went to the police station to report this. They should be arriving any minute now, I continued, watching as panic flickered across Mary's face. That's ridiculous. Don't joke about this. Calling the police over such a thing is an overreaction. Call them back and cancel it right now, she pleaded desperately. Planting cameras and listening devices in someone's home is a serious crime. It's your fault. You were so insolent that I felt I had to find something to hold over you. You are an outrageous woman. Mary tried to shift the blame, lashing out in anger. Tom finally reached his breaking point with his mother. Enough is enough. I've never been more ashamed to call you my mother. Mom, I thought you regretted mistreating Sarah, but then you pull something like this. Please don't be angry, Tom. I was doing it for you, Mary tried to explain. So committing a crime is justified. I shouldn't have been lenient just because you're my mother. I'm going to report this to Dad, and I'm cutting ties with you. Stay away from Sarah and me, Tom declared firmly. Mary began to scream, attempting to apologize through tears. Tom halted her. You're apologizing to the wrong person, he said, turning to me. Sarah, I'm sorry. I felt like I was losing Tom to you and made a foolish mistake. I deeply regret it. I won't oppose you again. Please forgive me, she pleaded desperately. But after everything she put me through, including the disturbing teddy bear incident, forgiveness was out of the question. I will never forgive you. I reached out to you multiple times and you ruined it. How could I forgive being given such a disgusting gift? Sorry might work for children, but as adults we must face the consequences of our actions, I told her firmly. Despite her continued pleas, neither Tom nor I felt any sympathy. Later the police arrived, giving her a stern warning. Weeks later, John divorced her and kicked her out of the house. Apparently he had long been frustrated with her reckless spending. Combined with her mistreatment of me and the teddy bear incident, he had had enough. Now she lives in a run-down apartment, struggling with multiple part-time jobs, a consequence of her actions. I hope she uses this opportunity to reconsider her choices and change for the better. As for me, I'm grateful to live in peace, surrounded by the kindness of Tom and John. In just a few months, we'll be welcoming our long-awaited baby into the world. We're filled with anticipation for the day our little one arrives.
I understood what was happening as I watched my sister's in-laws' house from far away. When I realized the truth, I was shocked. I wondered about the intentions of my sister's husband and his family towards her all this time. How many times had they tricked my sister with a straight face? It was unforgivable. No matter what, I was determined to make them pay. My name is Sally, and I'm 45 years old. When I tried to wear my funeral clothes again after a long time, I couldn't zip up the dress around my stomach. At first, I thought my body hadn't changed much, but it was obvious I'd gained some belly fat. The last time I wore this dress was when I was 30. My sister Jane, who had a weak heart since she was young, sadly passed away at 27 due to worsening pneumonia that led to heart failure. It's strange that I was the only one who spoke with Jane before she passed away. I happened to visit her in the hospital that day. Jane probably had many plans since she was only in her second year of marriage. She likely never thought she'd leave this world so soon. When I remember her smile as she talked about wanting to stroll under the autumn leaves after leaving the hospital, it breaks my heart. On the day of Jane's funeral, when I couldn't come to terms with her tragic death, something happened. Just before the ceremony started, I went to the restroom. There I saw Jane's husband Bob talking on the phone in the nearby lounge. Yeah, once the funeral is done and Christmas rolls around, things should settle down a bit. Yeah, you're right. No, we should keep a low profile until the memorial mass about a year later. I don't usually listen in on people's phone calls, but this time I couldn't help but be curious about what they were saying. What does he mean by keep a low profile until the memorial mass about a year later? The deceased, he must mean Jane, right? The way Bob is talking, it doesn't sound like he's talking to a colleague. All of Jane's family is here at the ceremony. Who could he be talking to? Sorry for keeping you waiting. Yeah, I get it. No, the kid's fine. They don't suspect a thing. Neither my wife nor anyone in her family has noticed I have a child. Just stay home and relax. What? I was shocked. Did he just say he has a child? For the record, Jane and Bob didn't have any children. They decided not to because it was uncertain if Jane's body could handle childbirth. They were both in their first marriages, and we never heard anything about Bob having a child. What's happening? Honestly, Bob's strange conversation left me confused and overwhelmed with thoughts. But suddenly, I remembered the words Jane desperately tried to tell me just before she went into surgery. There's a child at home. After Jane lost consciousness and passed away a few days later without waking up, I never got to hear the rest of what she wanted to say. I was the only one who heard those words. The shock of losing Jane was so huge that I didn't have time to think about what she meant. But when I connected Jane's words about home with what Bob said about stay at home in their old house, which Sally wouldn't call their parents' house, just home. But there were no children in our family home either. After a bit of thinking, it hit me all of a sudden. Could it be that the child Bob was talking about on the phone is living at Bob's parents' house? When that idea came to mind, I couldn't sit still. If that were true, I don't think I could forgive Bob. After paying my respects at Jane's memorial service, I was eager to test my theory. I left the funeral home right away and went straight to Bob's parents' house. It's within walking distance from Jane and Bob's place. Bob is an only child, and his parents are getting older, so they decided to live close by. Jane had worries about living so close to her in-laws, wondering if she could get along with them better. But in reality, they hardly ever went back there and had very little family interaction. Maybe that's why even at Jane's funeral, Bob's parents didn't seem too upset about what happened. Instead, they seemed more interested in playing with their phones, which I found kind of strange. Well, I guess this is what happens when the relationship with in-laws is so distant. At least they could pretend to be more sympathetic at a time like this. Remembering how Bob's parents behaved, I finally reached Bob's parents' house. I hesitated to ring the doorbell. Everyone should be at Jane's funeral, so there shouldn't be anyone home. But what if someone did answer the door? What would I say? I still didn't have any proof of Bob's wrongdoing, and I wasn't confident about confronting someone without evidence. As I thought about this, I went around to the back of the house and peeked inside through a window that wasn't closed. I could see the whole room. Could someone really be in there? Just as my heart skipped a beat. Hey, stop moving. Look, stay still. Yeah. A child ran out into the yard, followed by a woman I didn't recognize. I instinctively hid and watched them from the shadows. The child looked a lot like Bob, with wobbly steps indicating he'd just started walking a few months ago. The woman seemed to be around Bob's age, and her eyes resembled the child's, making me certain she was the mother. Oh God, did Bob really cheat on my sister? When did this betrayal start? When did Jane find out? Even though my suspicions seemed to fit together perfectly, I had so many questions and didn't feel any better. Instead, tears started to well up. I'll never forgive him. I promised myself to make him pay for what he did to my sister. Later, I went back to the funeral home and attended Jane's burial in the churchyard. Even though everyone thought I left halfway through, when I explained that I couldn't handle the shock of losing Jane, they seemed to understand. I highly doubt anyone would suspect I went to Bob's house, but I was relieved that my sister's in-laws didn't seem to notice anything strange at all. The next day, I made up my mind to ask for a private investigation on Bob from the only detective agency in town. To my surprise, it was run by Jane's friend Layla, whom I remembered from the funeral. Layla told me that Jane had also asked for an investigation on her husband. After she requested the investigation, Jane got sick and passed away. Even though I have to keep things confidential, I think Jane would have wanted you to know, Layla said. With that, Layla shared the details and findings of the investigation Jane had requested. Once, even though they were engaged, Jane and Bob almost broke up. Bob got cold feet just 6 months before their wedding, saying he wasn't sure he could protect Jane, who had a weak heart, and he wanted some space. After a lot of thinking, Jane agreed and decided to distance herself from Bob. However, about 2 months later, Bob apologized and said he wanted to marry Jane after all, so they patched things up and went ahead with the wedding. After that, Bob worked really hard, even on his days off, because he wanted to buy Jane a house in the future. Jane talked about their relationship like everything was fine, like she was proud of it, so I thought they were okay. But I was wrong, Leila explained. In reality, right after getting engaged to Jane, Bob started having an affair with his childhood friend Nancy. They had dated before but broke up over a small disagreement. Even though Bob met Jane and got engaged, he still had feelings for Nancy. When Nancy reached out to him, those old feelings came back. To make matters worse, Bob's excuse about getting cold feet was a lie. Around the same time, Nancy got pregnant, and Bob was torn about whether to leave Jane and marry her. He even talked about it with some friends. But Nancy was firm in her decision. "If you stay with me, I won't ask you to marry me. But I'm going to have this baby," Nancy told Bob. Bob didn't want to break up with Nancy, but he also didn't want to tell his wife Jane about the baby. At the same time, he couldn't ignore a child he might have with someone he cared about. He didn't want Nancy to have the baby, but she was determined to keep it. Eventually, Bob opened up to his parents about the situation, only for them to say, "This will be our first grandchild, so let her have the baby." Bob's parents had always preferred Nancy as his partner since they knew her well from childhood. Plus, they didn't seem to like Jane much because she was frail and might not give them a grandchild, which they often complained about to others. Fortunately, Jane is frail, and she won't last long. Once she's gone, acknowledge the child and marry Nancy. Bob's parents proposed, and Nancy agreed. Though it was a twisted plan, it appealed to Bob. If his parents say so, then it must be okay, he thought. So it was decided that Nancy would have the child. Nancy, like Bob, was an only child, and her parents had already passed away. That's why Bob's parents spent a lot of time at Nancy's house, helping her during her pregnancy. The story about Bob working hard for Jane right after their wedding was a lie. He was probably visiting his newborn baby during that time. There were witnesses who saw Bob going to Nancy's house often, Leila explained. This suggests that the excuse of moving closer to their elderly parents was also a lie. They actually wanted to be near the child. As the child grew up, they respected Bob's parents' wish to spend more time with their grandchild, so Nancy and the child stayed more often at their house. With various excuses, they kept Jane away from her in-laws, and eventually, they stopped going home altogether. It's enraging how they're endorsing infidelity as a family, Leila concluded. Just a month ago, my sister found out about Bob's cheating. She was feeling sick and left work early, probably not realizing that Jane was home. Bob, who hardly ever texted or called when Jane was around, came home earlier than usual that day and apparently made a call somewhere. "I got off work early. Can I come over now?" "My wife? She's at work. I don't think she'll find out. She seems to be getting sick a lot lately and might go to sleep early. If I say I'm working late, I think I can stay longer with you," Bob said. "Yeah, I also want to live with Nancy and the kids soon. Every time she says she's not feeling well, I think she won't last much longer," replied the other person. "Yay, I'm looking forward to it every time." Just imagining how Jane felt hearing that from her sickbed makes my heart ache. This incident made Jane aware of Bob's cheating, and she seemed to have hired a private investigator who happened to be her friend Leila. The investigation revealed everything, and just as Jane was about to confront Bob with a divorce, she collapsed and passed away. As Leila finished telling me all this, she lowered her gaze and said, "Jane must have been heartbroken. I couldn't agree more. I wanted to avenge Jane's pain. I couldn't bear the thought of Bob and his parents enjoying having a grandchild while Bob planned to remarry. But I've only just learned all this, and I don't know what to do." After thinking for a while, I had an idea. "Leila, are you good with computers?" At my words, Leila smiled and said, "I got this." The next day, I went to my sister's in-law's house. When I rang the doorbell, my sister's mother-in-law appeared on the monitor, looking surprised to see me. "Oh, Sally, what's going on?" she asked, sounding a bit anxious. "I need to talk to the family about Jane's things. Can we talk for a moment?" Hearing my request, my sister's mother-in-law fell silent, and the intercom went quiet. Oh no, maybe she won't let me in. Feeling nervous, I waited for a while. And then Bob appeared, saying, "I'm sorry, Sally. The room was messy, so I had to tidy up a bit. Please come in." "Oh, Bob, you're here. Perfect timing," I said with a smile. Bob's expression stiffened. He probably thinks I haven't figured out his cheating yet. His face stiffened, likely because he's hiding something. In fact, I had just seen his mistress and their child through the window. I bet he was cleaning up after them. I wonder which room they're in. Bob and my sister's in-laws seemed uneasy as they watched me enter the room. As soon as I took a sip of the tea they served me, Bob asked, "What's this about Jane's belongings?" Yeah. It's about this," I said, laying out a photograph on the table. Bob and his parents froze as they looked at the photo. "Bob, who is this woman?" I asked. "I don't know her," Bob replied hastily. In the photo, Bob and a woman were in bed together. The other day, this was sent to our house. It said that Bob is having an affair, I explained. Hearing this, his parents glared at Bob, and Bob shook his head frantically. "Wait, I don't remember this photo," he shouted. Ignoring his protests, I laid out more photographs. Each one showed Bob and the same woman kissing or on a date at a nearby amusement park. "People who cheat don't usually admit to their memory lapses, do they?" I said, feeling the tension rise. "I'm used to it," my sister's mother-in-law sharply retorted. "What are you implying, young lady?" "No. Mom, you've got it all wrong." "I don't know anything about this," Bob protested. "Then what's this picture about?" Even though you have a child with Nancy, I immediately responded to my sister's mother-in-law's words. My sister's father-in-law looked guilty and said, "Oh, you mean this child?" "And is this woman Nancy?" I asked, showing a photograph of Bob holding the child. "What?" The entire in-law family was speechless, and even though Bob kept denying the accusation, my sister's mother-in-law slapped him, calling him a worthless son. "Do you have other children too?" she demanded. "Please listen to me, Mom, Dad," Bob pleaded. But my sister's in-laws ignored Bob's pleas, scolding him for betraying their beloved grandchild. "What nonsense bringing this here?" "The picture was sent to her house." "I don't know much about it either," Bob exclaimed. "I came here seeking clarity, but it seems Bob does have a child," I said, preparing for a confrontation. Bob was at a loss for words. But honestly, Bob was telling the truth. He doesn't have any other affair besides Nancy. I didn't plan to reveal this, as I didn't want to be accused of spreading false information later on. However, this picture is fake. It's a composite one that I had Layla create. I could have used a real picture of the child with the actual person Bob cheated with, but I chose a combined photo because of certain reasons. I planned to confront him by asking him about the child, but luckily, my sister's mother-in-law revealed the truth earlier than I expected. "So, your quietness means it's true, isn't it? Earlier your mom also mentioned something about a child and Nancy," I said while my sisters-in-law stayed still where they were. "The note that came with the picture said these kids are being looked after in this house." "That's not true." My sister's mother-in-law quickly disagreed with what I said. "Are you sure?" "Of course, it's not true." "Then show me all the rooms." "Huh?" Without waiting for their approval, I stood up from my seat and headed towards the room next door. "Hey, wait a minute. You can't just snoop around other people's houses." Bob raised his voice. "If there's nothing to hide, then you should show me." "That's not the point." "Then what's the issue?" "Well." Without waiting for Bob's response, I ignored the attempts of my sister's in-laws to stop me and peeked into the next room. "She's not here," I concluded, and then I went upstairs to the second floor. Despite facing obstacles and scraping my knee, it was nothing compared to my sister's pain. I was willing to endure any number of fresh wounds. Pushing past my sister's in-laws, I opened the door to the room on the second floor, pushing Bob aside as I did so. "Ah, there she is." In the room, Nancy and a child were sitting on the bed. "Well, who do we have here?" It was a different woman and child from the ones in the picture. "What's happening?" Bob asked. At my words, Bob turned pale, and Nancy looked puzzled, saying, "A picture?" "Yes, it seems like Bob here has been cheating while my sister was around. Look at this picture." As I showed the fake photo to Nancy, her face twisted in anger, and she crumpled the picture. "What is this? You were with another woman." "No, Nancy, it's not like that. Just listen." Nancy was furious, and Bob looked pale. Having gotten the proof I needed, I'd added, "So you were indeed involved with Bob, huh?" My sister's in-laws were stunned, unable to believe what was happening. "Why? You told me I was the only one. You said we didn't have to get married, and I wanted to have a child and be with you. And now this. Nancy, there must be some mistake. Maybe it's a look-alike or Photoshop. What do you mean, maybe? You can't deny it completely. I can't trust you anymore. For a moment, I was surprised by the mention of Photoshop, but since Bob was too flustered to deny it properly, Nancy's suspicions were at their peak. A man who's so unsure of himself, you'd be better off not trusting him. He ruined my sister's life, I said, offering my serious advice. Nancy's face hardened. My sister went through a lot because of him, but she probably understands that already. I don't need to say anything, I thought to myself. Now, I need to act like I'm on Nancy's side and get her to listen to me to achieve my goal of not letting any of Bob's family or Nancy be happy. I understand, Nancy muttered. Wait, Nancy, I'm serious about you, I interrupted Bob's desperate attempt to win Nancy over. So you weren't serious about my sister, but you told her you were, even made marriage vows to her. Looks like you really are an untrustworthy man, Bob, I said. At my words, Nancy's face darkened. With a fake photo and everything, she seemed to start doubting whether Bob's words were sincere. Good. If you were serious, you wouldn't be cheating from the beginning. No matter what, you should stick to one person, I emphasized. As I stressed my point, Nancy's expression grew even darker. Bob's face turned ghostly pale. He must have sensed the growing distance in Nancy's feelings. We should break up, Bob. I don't want to be your backup option. After seeing that photo, I can't trust you anymore. I could handle being the other woman, but I can't stand the thought of being the third one, Nancy declared, tears flowing down her cheeks. Bob instinctively reached for her hand and pleaded, Please, just listen to me. But Nancy pulled away, stating firmly, I don't need you to acknowledge the child anymore. Just leave me alone. As Nancy left the house with her child, Bob's entire family was saddened by the loss of both the child and the planned second wife. Meanwhile, I felt a sense of victory inside. Later, I had Bob write a legal document officially ending his ties with our family, cutting off all connections. Additionally, he agreed to relinquish any rights he had to the inheritance left by my sister. My father, who is usually quite stern, heard everything from me and stormed into my sister's in-laws' home. They were shocked by his sudden appearance and seemed to agree to renounce any claim to the inheritance, wanting to sever ties with our family completely. Well, even though we call it my sister's inheritance, it wasn't much. But it's a relief that not a single cent of her assets went to him, I thought. On the day I brought the photos to Bob's house, it seems one of the windows was open. As a result, our argument and conversation could be heard clearly outside, along with revelations from Nancy's friend who lived nearby. Everything that happened in Bob's house was exposed to the entire neighborhood. As a result, rumors spread that Bob's house was cursed, and he decided to quit his job and leave town with his parents. Meanwhile, Nancy unexpectedly showed up at our family home after about 2 months. She came bearing $50,000 as a gesture of apology and gratitude for helping her see the truth. She wanted to make amends for how she had treated my sister. While I appreciated Nancy's intentions, money couldn't erase the pain my sister had endured. It didn't feel right for us to forgive someone for something they themselves couldn't forgive just because they offered money. We understood Nancy's gratitude, but we couldn't accept money from someone who had done such a shameful thing, so I declined to accept the money. Instead, we suggested that it be donated to a nearby children's home where my sister used to work. Do you doubt whether such a woman would actually follow through with the donation? Of course not. I went with her to ensure the donation was made properly, so you can trust that it happened. If the money is used for that purpose, I believe my sister would be happy. I hope the children who have their whole lives ahead of them can find happiness, even on behalf of my sister. As for myself, it's hard to admit, but I struggled with the loss of my sister for a while, even experiencing mental health challenges. There was a time when it was so tough that I had to leave my job. But I've been gradually recovering, and now I work at Layla's detective agency. Leela and I became very close after that incident. I think it's because we were both comrades who had lost something important in such a tragic way. We found common ground. Although I didn't have a positive view of marriage because of what happened to my sister after being with my partner for 4 years, we got married last year. The experience of losing my sister during the COVID-19 pandemic made me realize that I never know when I might lose the chance to be with my loved ones. So I decided to get married. I want to cherish every moment with those I care about, without any regrets. Just watch me, Jane. I promise to live a long, fulfilling life for both of us. When I join you someday, we'll have a blast together, I declared, determined to live life to the fullest.